If you need to make a long straight cut in wood, often called a rip cut, and you're going to do it using a circular saw, then the most accurate way is to clamp a straight edge on the workpiece and then run the edge of the sole plate on the saw along that straight edge. Now this straight edge or guide is usually clamped into position, but what I want to show you right now is how to make a guide that requires no clamping. Now we're going to start by cutting a strip of wood that's just slightly wider than the base of the saw. I adjust the depth of cut to be about 1/4 of an inch deeper than the thickness of the material I'm cutting. Then insert the saw battery, place the edge of the base plate up against the straight edge, and make my cut. Notice I'm cutting on top of a piece of rigid insulation. This gives me support along both sides of the saw curve. I apply glue to a strip of 3/8 inch wood and place the strip along one edge of the material I just cut. Then, using a nailer, I secure the strip with small brads to hold it in place until the glue dries. You'll notice I'm still working on top of the rigid insulation to avoid nailing into my bench. I turn the material over, clip off the nails where they've protruded through, and file off any metal that sticks out above the surface of the wood. Now I place the saw base up against the attached strip of wood and cut off the excess. The distance from the wood strip to the edge of the guide is exactly the same as the distance from the edge of the saw base to the inside of the blade. Next, I lay several pieces of 120 grit sandpaper grit side down and apply spray adhesive to the backs. Then flip over the sheets of sandpaper and press them to the back side of the guide. This will provide our non-slip surface. I flip the saw guide over and, using a utility knife with a sharp blade, trim the sandpaper flush with the edge of the guide. Notice that here too I'm working on top of the rigid insulation to avoid cutting into my bench and dulling my blade as I trim the sandpaper to size. I use the cut-off scraps to cover the final section and again trim off the excess. Well, here's our saw guide with the non-slip backing on it. So let's put this to use. Say I want to make a cut right along this line here. All I have to do is set the edge of the guide on the cut line and we're ready to go. The guide stays firmly in place thanks to the sandpaper on the back. Look, Ma, no clamps.